what would you consider exploitation?
If I tell you what I see on a kid's cell phones, and if I tell you what I see on their computers, it is absolutely disgusting. I mean,
So you are checking out the cell phones and the things of your kids?
Well, if you want me to tell you about cell phones, I'm really against it. Even I worked in the industry for 15 years. The cell phone is being used so much that these kids no longer know how to verbally communicate. So these pictures that are being passed on the cell phone is really constantly involved with these chicken hawks. Remember that? Chicken hawks, where the hawks keep going after the little chickens because they can grab them, so we can see, you know. This is what's going on right now with kids and cell phones and computers. And I'm very concerned about that.
I guess a lot of the discussions around sexual education were, what is it that we're going to teach people in terms of sexual education? And that has still not been settled, it does seem to me. And because there is such access through all of the technology that we have, everything is on the internet now. Everything. And maybe there are points at which children are not ready for some of those things that we're talking about. And we need to have that family again, that group working with them to see it from a different point of view. Way in the back.
Just as far as the strides for education, the fact that we have women's and gender studies at the university, I think is a major stride, and that it's a common major of anybody, of men and women.
Yeah, it used to just be for the women to come and do the feminist studies, but now you do see quite a few men in the classes, because it basically is, you have to learn both. You know, you have to understand all of the people, all of the kinds of people that we have in our society and what the possibilities are there. You can't just set up one. I don't really want a world that will just be women. You know, I think there's a good blend that we want to be looking at periodically, but we have to have a different approach to what we're talking about. And we have to deal with those issues. We cannot just let them go by because they are affecting our society. And one of the things, again, I keep coming back to the militarism of our society. If you go to any one of the places where American troops are, one of the things you find is how sex is used to maintain the military happily wherever they happen to be. And what happens to the women in those areas when that occurs. A lot of the violence that we're learning about now is coming out of those bases that have been put up all over the world where the United States troops are, as part of the peace that we talk about, to recognize that as long as we're going to do that, we're going to have major problems with the rest of the world and how we use their females in their communities to satisfy our military base. And we're getting a lot of things on that now. That's coming out in a lot of ways. Yes. Jody?
I think what the gal in the back mentioned was it's actually called gender studies now instead of feminine. And I think in my generation, which is 50, the boomers, we called it, we mistook equality for sameness.
Yes.
And I think that got us in a lot of trouble. And I think the generation that's coming of age now, the 20, 30 something, that they really see that equal does not mean same. And so there's really a study at the differences between genders. And I know that's not just in the United States, but in Japan, they have gender studies programs. They really study the differences between masculine and feminine. And that was stuff that, again, wasn't in the vocabulary.
Well, also there were no studies. Nobody was doing those studies to do it at that stage.
And I think men, you know, I live in a more urban area than this, but this was very uncommon back in the 70s and 80s. You see fathers with their babies, whereas now on a regular basis I see men alone with newborns, and that you did not see that before. You would never see, and now you see in my neighborhood there's men with their kids all walking their babies, you know, or they're carrying them in the front packs, and that was something you didn't used to see. It's a common thing.
I think you do see a lot of that. And I think you are actually seeing joy in that. In the old days, if you saw a father with his kids, it meant he was out of work. If he was taking his kids someplace during the middle of the day. But that is not what is the picture any longer. So there are things that have made major changes in our society. So even though I started out by being very depressed by everything going on, there are things that we can grab onto and continue to look at and continue to move forward on. Anything else? Well, let me get this lady first, and then I'll come back to you.
Back to the integration theme, men and women helping victims of sexual abuse and so forth, setting up safe houses and whatever in order to protect basic human rights. Immigrant women coming here by almost any means possible, hoping for some safety net. And is that an area that we might expand here and abroad?
Well, you answer the question.
Well, it seems that that's a direction we might develop. There are so many immigrant women coming here from Nigeria, from Russia, the Ukraine, whatever, and they have met American men over the internet to get here, but once they're here, they want to establish their independence, and they really look up to American women now for independence, self-sustaining living, but also a degree of protection for family, raising their children, having an education. And they're using our safety nets as full of holes as they are. They're trying to use our safety nets. But we also have our American women who are abused, and older women as well as children. It seems like that safety net is really strained here, but it's maybe something that we might want to develop and expand.
That again sounds a little bit like we think we're doing it right over here, and they're coming over here to look at how we did it right.
Well, their image of us is that we have it better than they have it.
Yeah, I think the image is one of money. The image is that there is a better life because there's more money there. And what I think I heard Charlie talking about also is the importance of looking at some of what we would have called the old traditional things as still being very valuable. You know, to have understanding of the varieties that there are out there, but not to assume that people think you're going to have a better life in the United States if you come from someplace else. So many of the people coming are coming again as a result of wars. They're not coming on immigration. You know, they're not coming with statements that say, I want to become a citizen of the United States. Usually they're coming because they have come from a country which has been at war, and they are now coming to the United States in larger numbers because they are allowed to come in larger numbers when they're coming as what? Refugees. And that's a very, very hard way to come to the United States. Very difficult. So we have a lot of things that we have to look at. It's not necessary that everybody be here. We know that. You know, we would like to go someplace else sometimes, because everything that goes on here is not what is good for everybody. So we are looking at this transfer of populations mostly around the question of economics. Not so much because they think the life in the United States is all that much better, but because money is there, and there is something that they don't have there, and they don't have war. They don't have the wars that they are having in their own countries. Let me get you. And then I'll come back to you.
I think there's some collusion when they have, this is about cigarette smoking and disability rights. There's a lot of people that have, people that, they back up the child, something or other, child number 5, the first 5 years or something, with money that comes from tobacco. And yet, there's a lot of seniors and other people that have disabilities, and they cannot handle the smoke. It gives them asthma. There's been a lot of things, lung things. And still, it hasn't been passed to have no smoking in residential units like that are not single-standing homes. I feel sometimes discriminating. If you can't afford to live in a warm house, you have to just be subjected to this. We've come a long ways with tobacco control when it has to do with commercialism, the airplanes, because I was in tobacco control grassroots in '75 since I came to averted. Now it's up to the health department to be averted.